going to start our meeting tonight with our call to order, and that will start with the Pledge of Allegiance and our collect. So if everybody would rise. Well, nothing fitting more than having our local mayor, so would you mind starting us with the Pledge of Allegiance, Liz? Sure, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, those of you that are not members, I know you don't have this, but the rest of us will recite our collect. Lisa, do you mind? Oh, your guys are sharing. I'll go this way. John, do you have your collect with you?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have you lead us off, please.
Keep
us, O God, from petty. Let us be large in thought, in word, in deed. Let us be done with fault finding and leave off self-seeking. May we put away all pretenses and meet each other face to face, without self-pity and without prejudices. May we never be hasty in judgment and always generous. Let us take time for all things. Make us grow calm, serene, gentle. Teach us to put into action our better impulses, straightforward and unafraid. Grant that we may realize it is the little things that create differences, that in the big things in life we are at one. And may we strive to touch and to know the great common human heart of us all. And oh Lord God, let us forget not to be kind. If everybody would have a seat now. So, we are going to start tonight with Sarah Bigelow and Jackie Hood. If you would come up to the front, please. Sarah is the chair of the awards committee, and Jackie is her mentor and helper in this process. So I am going to be stepping out of the way. And ladies, you're on. Go ahead.
You want to say welcome or anything?
I don't really know.
Okay, just stand. Good evening. Tonight we are giving out the 2017 Woman of Achievement Award. These awards coincide with the celebration of the Foundation, Business of Professional Women's Foundation, Business Women's Week. We're a little bit late, but they were nominated during that week. That week is designed to recognize the contributions of America's working women to the country. The Woman of Achievement Award can help to appropriately spotlight BPW and its mission in various media. The Woman of Achievement should exemplify what Business of Professional Women stands for in both her personal activities and her business life. A true woman helping woman person. She should be willing to assist other women in personal growth and/or career development. The nominee should be a respected citizen doing work in her field of endeavor. She should be active in the community, volunteer, religious, professional, youth, or human services. Though all of the above may not be met, she should be a well-rounded and congenial person. I'd like to read you a little bit of the letters of nomination for the winner of this award. This is out of order, but at this point you have red letters listing out how much she has accomplished professionally. Certainly my interactions with her have been nothing short of exceptional, and I have seen this company blossom with her at the helm. She is sharp, what an understatement, competent, in control, and incredibly driven to make sure her company is performing beyond expectations. There's another side to this woman that compelled me to share with you. She is the type of woman that you want as a sister, a friend, a daughter, and a mother. I have seen her lift others up in so many ways, sometimes quietly, and sometimes by making bold statements that need to be heard in volume. You are sure to associate the word strong with her through these letters. Yet she also shows some of her most impressive strength in her ability to also be vulnerable. She is not meek about sharing the fact that she also has struggles sometimes. That letter was written by Jennifer Swiatek, the owner of Beverage Warehouse of Vermont. The next letter. She is truly a professional businesswoman and a role model for my own daughter, not to mention all girls in Vermont. In an industry dominated by men, she has risen to lead a very large company in the state of Vermont with much competition. She is a woman who helps women. There's a theme here. In addition to her role in her business, she speaks on the role of women in the workplace at schools and professional seminars, demonstrating that talent and hard work are not gender specific. She is a respected and beloved figure in her business and has a true passion for the product that she delivers. In the local community, she is a staple figure and known universally in St. Albans for her outreach and charitable work. I cannot believe that another candidate for this award would possess the business acumen, compassion for others, and devotion to the future of tomorrow's female executives than this woman. That letter was written by Steve Gagner, founder of 14 Star Brewing. The next letter says, her commitments in both her personal and professional life have strengthened the fabric of our community in St. Albans, Franklin County, and the state of Vermont. She contributes to the health and vitality of our community on a daily basis. As the leader of a successful and growing business, she is a key participant in the revitalization of St. Albans. Her efforts contribute to a stronger local community. And that letter was written by Liz Gamache, Mayor, City of St. Albans. The second to the last letter says, I'm honored to write this letter of recommendation in support of the nomination of this woman for the 2017 Woman of Achievement Award. Well, it tells how this person met her, and that would be kind of a giveaway.
She knows. Go ahead, she knows.
I first met her in 2015 to plan an event to honor my son, a veteran who lost his battle with post-traumatic stress and ended his life in 2014. From the moment I met her, she's been nothing but supportive and compassionate of our endeavors with our nonprofit created in my son's honor. The event we hold is so emotional for us that having her to rely on immediately puts us at ease. She makes you feel like your event is the only one that matters. She's more than the CFO of a business. She's a member of a community who continues to serve others, and she does it with a smile and compassion every single time. She is a prime example of the BPW ethos of women helping women. She's a woman who can't say no when it comes to supporting women. And I believe this was written by Valerie Pilata, co-director of the Josh Pilata Fund. And I believe Jackie Hawkins has a letter she would like to read.
So now that everybody knows who this is,
I tried.
I knew from the minute you read the first one, or I read any of them, she would know. It's with great pleasure that I nominate Andrea Gagner for the 2017-18 Woman of Achievement Award. Since the day I met her, I knew she would be a huge impact in my life. It all started out when the day I met Steve. Steve and I met. In fact, it was at a BPW meeting. Once he mentioned that his sister was the gal running the company, I was quite intrigued. Then I thought, what an amazing person to come speak and tell her story to the Business and Professional Women's Organization. I invited her to speak at a meeting and she accepted. Everyone listened intently to every word she had to say. I wondered, how could I be more like this woman? Everything I hear is exactly who I want to be. Time went by, and then I nervously reached out to her again to see if I could pick her brain about the community and how to get more people involved with BPW. I was quite shocked that she agreed to meet me. Why? I'm not sure. Because I'm no one, and she's someone strong and powerful, a woman running a company, doing all that she does to give back to her community. My next thought was, you dummy, that's exactly why she agreed to meet with me. To help the community get involved and vice versa with the organization. We quickly hit it off and became friends, and she became my mentor. In no time, she had me striving to be the best person that I could be. She made me realize that I deserve to be happy, not only at home, at work, in my community, but also within myself. Shortly after this, she hired me to be her assistant. Seriously? I'm going to get to spend more time and listen to this woman? Really? How could I not? Every day, I learn something new and can't believe how this woman operates. She successfully runs this amazing business called 14th Star. She is on several boards, such as Martha's Kitchen, Veterans Count, and the Maple Festival Committee. She is constantly finding ways to support and work with the Josh Pilata Fund and Purple Hearts Reunited. She is in close contact with Lori's house and Tim's house, helping them to fulfill their needs along with the community action. This woman never stops. What I've really grown to know and love about her is that she feels so strongly in giving back to those in need in our community because it's the right thing to do. Not for fame or fortune or anything else. She actually gets quite upset when people do try to do those things just for getting their name out there. She gets super emotional, many tears behind the scenes just because she cares so deeply. Heck, many tears not behind the scenes because she can't hold them in. To me, that is real. Andrea Gagner, you are definitely a true woman of achievement to me. Thank you.
You want to come up here? We have a little something for you.
Wrong question.
That was good. You knew to get me here, it wasn't that,
It's tricky.
Learn from the best, right?
right?
We want to present you with this
Wow,
award
it's
as Women of Achievement for 2017 from the Franklin County Business and Professional Women. Thank you, sir. No, well deserved. Thank you.
So I'm supposed to say a few things, right? First of all, there's no kids, right? You all. Every one of you. Super touched by the not behind the scenes, right? By the letters. I'm really just doing what I have to do for this business, for this community, for the women in it. There weren't a lot of strong female role models in my life. I was lucky enough to have male role models that encouraged the growth of the females in their lives. And for that, I'm super grateful. I'm grateful to all of you for being here, for thinking all of these wonderful things, even if I think a lot of it's horseshit. You know, if nothing else, if I can teach Brianna or another young girl to stand up for herself, to tell someone something's horseshit when it's horseshit, and to just really do more for others, because we don't have enough of that. So, thank you.
And now we're going to have Alex as our guest speaker tonight. So Alex, if you want to take the helm.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alex Lenning. I'm the Executive Director of the St. Albans Museum. It's really an honor and privilege to be asked to be your guest speaker this evening. I'm sorry we didn't quite make the PowerPoint work out, but I'm happy to share the slides with anyone afterwards if you'd like. And certainly congratulations, Andrea. It was so moving to hear all the descriptions of the great work you do in the community. And we're so lucky at the museum to have support from 14th Star. Because of your support, this past week we were able to host 80 town school third graders at the museum for a whole day to learn about the St. Albans raid. So anytime you start to maybe question your impact, please know it's very real. Oops, sorry about that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about storytelling and this idea how stories give meaning to memory and community. And so I thought I'd start by sharing a few quotes. The first is from one of my favorite authors, Tim O'Brien, and he says that a thing may happen and be a total lie, or another thing may happen and be truer than the truth. And so really it's this idea that stories can sometimes have hidden meaning or deeper meaning or convey a truth that may not necessarily have to be tied in with the facts. Another great quote, in my life, all the stories I've heard from my family, my friends, my community, willing strangers in the world have been the source of my education. And it's true, right? Stories kind of help us understand where we come from. How many of us are going to sit down this Thursday or this weekend with family or friends, tell old stories around the Thanksgiving table? I'm sure if you talk to people who are around when BPW was founded in St. Albans or have been involved with the club throughout the years, they could give you that kind of perspective of education too. Although setbacks of all kinds may discourage us, the grand old process of storytelling puts us in touch with our strengths and the forgotten wisdom that has faded, disappeared, with the hopes that have fallen into darkness. So in some ways, stories are really powerful connectors to the past. They tell us, they share truths, they share knowledge, they share wisdom. When times are hard, when times are tough, when we find ourselves challenged, we can draw upon the strength of others and the words of others to kind of find our way through. And certainly the power of storytelling, most importantly, is, and this is one of my favorite quotes, is to bridge gaps where everything else has crumbled. So if we find ourselves in a place where we're trying to make meaning out of something, it's often a story or a narrative that can help us get there. Just a little bit about the museum. If you're not familiar with us, I know most of you are. We were founded as the St. Albans Historical Society in 1966. Actually started out sort of as a storytelling organizations. The first few meetings were held in members' homes, and they would give papers and tell stories about various things that happened in St. Albans history. We rebranded in 2016 as the St. Albans Museum. So I mentioned the society started in 1966. Museum didn't open until 1971. And if you've been to our building on Church Street, that's a former school that was constructed in 1861, served as a school till I think 1969, and then the museum opened a few years later. So there are two exhibit floors. The Bliss Room, which some of you may have been to, is our community space on the third floor. And we have a basement storage area. And approximately 200 current members. We serve about 1,000 guests and program visitors a year. And so one of the things I want to share with you is one of my favorite stories that I told this year. I had a member email me based upon a newsletter article he saw. And for those of you who don't remember, 1917 was the year America entered World War I. So this is the centennial year. And he said, I want to tell you about I think it was his great uncle, and how he was able to serve during the war. And he told this great story about how he couldn't make weight. So he ate pounds and pounds of bananas in order to pass the weight check and meet the requirement so that he could go off with his friends who had also enlisted and served together. And it was a really great story, the way he told it. And starting with that thread, we were able to kind of dig a little bit deeper and really find out this great story about a machine gun company that trained on Main Street that was made up of St. Albans high school students. So at the time, our building, the museum building, was the high school. So when orders came down that this group was going to be called into service, the officer who was involved with the Smith family and the CVR Railroad decided that we were going to wait until the next day to let all the soldiers know that they had to report. And the way they would know is that they did 3 sharp blasts of the train whistle down at the train yard. And literally, these maybe 24 students in class in that building on Church Street stood up, put their books down, grabbed their coats, ran out, ran across Taylor Park, over to City Hall. They didn't actually have uniforms at the time, so they put, the only thing they had were greatcoats, if you're familiar with the sort of big overcoat. They put the greatcoats on them, and they did the oath of enlistment, and they became active soldiers sort of instantly. Eventually went on to train together down in Colchester at the fort, and then went to serve in France. And unfortunately, not everyone came home. There was some debate within the community. Obviously, many parents were very proud. Some parents were anxious, nervous, concerned about the welfare of their sons. But the community really rallied around these young men who, days earlier had been studying for exams and playing football and were finding themselves on the way to France within a few months. So this is an example of how one kind of small piece of a story became a larger story, and we actually built a small exhibit out of it. So if you come into the museum, into our military room, you can see we were able to get a lot of information from the stories that this member told about his great uncle. There was actually an American Legion article, I think from 1928 or 33, that talked about how these boys became men as they transitioned into their service. And then we were able to pull some artifacts that were in our collection. And I'm sorry you can't see a greater picture, but we have a few things here that belong to soldiers from St. Albans who served. And one of the great things about the display is we tuck in all these little stories. So there's a pair of spectacles, a pair of eyeglasses, which in and of itself, it's sort of a personal object, right? But maybe not the most exciting thing in the display until you read that the soldier who wore them served in the Battle of the Argonne Forest, and they were literally blown off his face by the force of an explosion that happened nearby, and he was able to retrieve them before the battle was over. And so it kind of gives you more of a sense of what his experience was. It just wasn't something that he put on every day as part of his uniform or part of how he got ready in the morning. This was central to his understanding of that battle and what happened. There's a few other pieces, some medals, some dog tags, some garrison caps and other kit items that came from soldiers who served in St. Albans. So we were really happy to be able to, again, take this one small thread of a story and build this larger narrative into an exhibit. So why is storytelling important? Well, human beings as a species, we're sort of a narrative people, right? I teach world history at the Community College of Vermont, and the first thing we do are creation stories. So we talk about how our ancient ancestors understood the world around them and how we sort of came to be. So if you think about it, the very first things we're taught when we're young, nursery rhymes, songs, and those sorts of things, are stories. Oral traditions and storytelling provide us with a framework to understand and make sense of the world around us. I mean, the first cave painting that we know of, right, dates back like 17,000 years in France. So as long as we've been around, people have been trying to find ways to kind of understand what's happening around them, how they interact with the world, and those sorts of things. And they do it through storytelling. Storytelling demonstrates impact, illustrates context, right? Provides kind of that sense of why around something, and provides opportunities for engaging an audience emotionally and intellectually. We just saw a very wonderful example of storytelling that was very emotional and very moving. And stories, believe it or not, can influence behavior and provide compelling arguments to support data. So marketing is a great example of storytelling that we don't even realize. How many times have we purchased a product because we were motivated by the description or seeing somebody we trust or know or can identify with using that product? So it's really part of the world we live in. Oops, went too far. Oh, I made it angry. I apologize. So the reason I wanted to talk to you about storytelling, and the reason I wanted to kind of illustrate how I do it in my work as a museum curator and why it's important sort of generally, is because as a community organization of business and professional women, you're involved in all kinds of philanthropy, community initiatives. You're working, you're involved in projects, you're doing things around town, around the region, and around our state. And so I wanted to kind of highlight a little bit how storytelling can motivate and create community impact. So these are kind of pro tips, if you will, based on my experience in the nonprofit and museum world. And the first is you should be able to tell a story in 7 minutes, right? If you're familiar with something like Storytelling Night at Twigs or The Moth, you should be able to get up in a few minutes, engage the audience, tell a good story, make a point. You should also be able to tell a story in 7 words, which is a lot more challenging than it sounds. And what I mean by that is you have to know your message, you have to know how you want to craft it, and you have to know the best way to implement it. Sometimes you have a stage and an audience and an ability to do that. Other times you have to rely on getting out as quickly or as powerfully or as meaningfully as you can. So whether it's 7 minutes or 7 words, you have to have a message. Don't forget, visual storytelling is a really important part of this medium. So using images, art, video are things that can easily kind of be put to the side, but can really help create a profound connection with your audience. That also includes digital storytelling. So for those of you that are involved in the podcast world or interactive websites and those sorts of things, they can make a difference in getting your message across. A well-articulated story provides relevance and meaning. So it's about finding opportunities for people to become connected to what it is you're trying to share with them. And how can they understand it as something that's relevant in their life. Knowing your audience is key because it's the best way to get your message across. Also understanding internal audiences versus external audiences. The way you talk to each other as an organization is different than how you might talk to the community about your work, and it's important to know how to be sort of deliberate and intentional in crafting those messages. Make sure, like any good story, you've got a beginning, a middle, and an end. Identify your characters and present the audience with a challenge. So it's always important, in the literary world, you might call it a hook or something like that. Presenting a challenge. Give a takeaway. Your audience should be thinking about your message long after you stopped giving it, or that story, right? And if you're interested in learning more about storytelling, I wanted to recommend a resource. Is anyone here familiar with Vermont Story Lab? So this is a wonderful organization that puts on workshops throughout the year and then does a big summit every fall down at Shelburne Farms, and it's all about communications for nonprofits and community organizations. So if you're interested in developing some of these skills, I just went to a workshop in September, and they had a whole session on how to do videos, how to do podcasts, how to write stories for grants, how to engage storytelling for youth, and those sorts of things. So it's definitely like any other element of your nonprofit work, your professional work, your community work. It's a craft that you can hone and develop. So definitely storytelling, I think, is something that I'm fortunate. When people ask what I do as a historian, what does that mean? Well, I'm a professional storyteller. I get to tell stories every day, and we have so many wonderful stories here in St. Albans, so I'm very fortunate that I get to do that work. And obviously, you have a story to tell in the work that you do, and the philanthropy that you do, and the impact that you make on this community, which has been so heartfully demonstrated already this evening. So again, I appreciate the invitation. Thank you for allowing me to share with you this evening. Again, I'm happy to share the slides, and I'm so sorry I can't stay. I actually have a 7 o'clock meeting I have to get to, but thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
And we would like to apologize for not having the screen for you.
Oh, no worries. It happens. You tested my storytelling skills.
We did. We had an emergency work overage tonight, so the person bringing the screen kind of got tied up, and it was a decision whether she was going to make it here or try to go home and get a screen and work that in and try to be here, and we knew it wasn't going to work.
Well, having tried the chicken and biscuits and the apple pie and ice cream, I think it was a wise decision to make it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving,
Happy
everyone.
Thanksgiving.